Help, I'm trapped inside a box. Ah, okay, just kidding. Hey, so today we're gonna check out order of operations, and the learning target for today is you'll be able to evaluate an expression using order of operations. Um, some of you may have learned PEMDAS before. PEMDAS is a mnemonic device. Mnemonic is a big fancy word. It comes from Greek that means memory tool. It's a way to help remember things. PEMDAS is a way to help us remember the order of operations. So it's this one acronym, PEMDAS, and it stands for two different things. We got the sentence, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That way we can remember the letters in the order that they go in. And each of those also has a separate meaning over here that means what order of operation we should do first. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, and then subtract. And the tricky thing is that there's actually not a difference in the order between multiplying and dividing. They go in order to make the sentence make sense, because otherwise, if you said like, please excuse dear my Aunt Sally, it doesn't work the same. But multiplying does not necessarily happen before dividing. It's, one of them got written before the other. But really, multiply and divide have like the same order. So if both multiplying and dividing show up in the same number sentence, you work from left to right. And that might mean you divide before you multiply. It depends on the problem. Same thing is true about adding and subtracting. You don't always add before you subtract. Add and subtract both have the same like level, and you go from left to right. So if there's both adding and subtracting, you just work your way across the problem from left to right. Okay, here's the deal. Parentheses is actually a very short-sighted description and does not accurately capture all of the things we need to do in algebra. So I can't explain why people came up with PEMDAS. It's a great idea, poorly executed. This is a bad word choice. And let me show you why. So in algebra, just this year, there are a whole bunch of different ways that we do the same thing that parentheses do, right? We saw yesterday that parentheses are just a way of grouping things together. And I gave you the example of putting some packs of gum and some sticks of gum into a Ziploc bag. And then we can like replicate that Ziploc bag. So like this would be a Ziploc bag that's got two packs where I took away 5 sticks and just left the wrappers, and then duplicated that little Ziploc bag 4 times. Okay, so that is totally a way that we use grouping symbols in algebra. It keeps the 2x minus 5 together, and then we multiply it times 4. But there's a whole bunch of other ways that we group things together. And parentheses is kind of shortchanging all those other things that are going to show up. And then we're like, well, now what do I do? I've never, that doesn't show up in PEMDAS, right? Well, so here's just some examples, and you don't have to know all of these right now. But so division, 15x minus 25, that whole expression is being divided by 5. Okay, this is 15x minus 25. That's being grouped together. I have to keep that stuff all together and divide all of it by 5. I can even write it in long division. Same thing, right? The 15x minus 25, that whole thing has to be kept together as a group. I divide all of it by 5. Um, between the two inequality symbols right there, 3x minus 2, that's a group. 3x minus 2 as an algebra expression is at the same time greater than or equal to -7, also less than 1. Okay, so this is like a combination of two different inequalities, but the 3x minus 2 is a group. You cannot break apart the 3x and the minus 2. Absolute value inside the absolute value symbol, that's those like jail bars right there, the vertical lines, x minus 3, that's a group. Inside this exponent, 2 to the power of x plus 5, that is a group. They're both together, the x and plus 5 all together makes up the exponent. All these things are ways of grouping together. Parentheses is one way we group things together, but there are so many other ways we group things together. It seems very short-sighted to only give parentheses as the only possible way of grouping things together. Any of those other examples of way we group things together, we have to do that first, whether there are parentheses written there or not. So for that reason, in my class, we don't use PEMDAS, we use GEMDAS or GEMDAS. This is an acronym that I invented, and people still say it in both ways. Doesn't matter. You can say it either way. GEMDAS, GEMDAS, whatever. So I'm just going to change the G to graciously. It totally makes sense. Still graciously excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And of course, the most important part is the math operations. G stands for grouping symbols because there are so many different ways we group things together. All right. So now that we got that taken care of, GEMDAS will help us to do the following problems correctly, because if you do the operations in the wrong order, you don't get the same answer. And so we need to make sure we're doing them in the correct order. That's the whole point of what we're learning about today. So I'm going to take a look at some of the problems from the actual WAMAP assignment.